Welcome to the Lyster Health Talks podcast. Listen in as the team focuses on relevant, relatable health content that empowers your health and the readiness of the force. We are officially clearing the runway for a special mini-series dedicated entirely to aviation medicine. Over the next few episodes, we're diving into the critical role aviation medicine plays in keeping our pilots and crews mission ready and showing you exactly how our care keeps you in the air. Let's prep for takeoff as we talk aviation medicine here at Fort Rucker, the home of Army Aviation.
Welcome to the Aviation Medicine mini-series. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Leah Steder, the Director and Commander of Lyster Army Health Clinic and the host of the Lyster Health Talks podcast. Today, we're focusing on something every soldier in Army aviation experiences but few truly appreciate: noise. Rotor blades, turbine engines, flight line operations. In Army aviation, noise is part of the mission. But every takeoff, every maintenance run, and every hour on the flight line leaves a mark. Unlike a broken bone, hearing loss doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly until one day the damage is permanent. Today, we're talking about protecting one of your most valuable mission assets, your hearing. Today, I'm joined by Lyster's Chief of Audiology and Chief of Specialty Services, Lieutenant Colonel Ellie Young. Ellie comes with a wealth of knowledge and has been treating aviators for over
17 years now.
Perfect. Ellie, can you tell some of our listeners why hearing is so important in Army aviation? I know it's important in all of the Army, but particular Army aviation.
One reason why hearing is very important in aviation is because of the amount of information that aviators are processing auditorily. So they are getting several different radio inputs through their headsets at the same time, and they have to be able to distinguish which one pertains to them and react to it appropriately.
Now, you said they're receiving several different noises, but would you say that hearing is pretty mission critical?
It is absolutely mission critical for aviation, yes.
How loud is Army aviation?
There is some variation in the loudness levels of different aircraft, but basically all of them are producing over 100 decibels, no matter which position within the aircraft the aviator is located.
Do you happen to know which aircraft produces the highest noise levels?
In general, the Chinook is the loudest.
If I'm not surprised. Do you think the Cheyenne will be louder?
That is a great question. I haven't seen any data yet on the Cheyenne.
And then how quickly can damage occur?
Well, in general, we talk about two different types of noise. One is impact impulse noise, and that's going to be anything like your weapon firing and your explosions and things like that that are a sound that's less than half a second. Those cause instant damage if they're over 140 decibels. And when we're talking about rotary aircraft, they are a constant type of sound, so the damage tends to occur more slowly. However, anything over 85 decibels starts to do damage. So all of our aircraft are producing hazardous levels of noise. So even though we have hazardous exposures in aviation, that doesn't mean that hearing loss is inevitable. All noise exposure is preventable with the correct type of hearing protection.
That's great. I know. And you mentioned hearing protection. Can you talk a little bit about hearing protection for aviators? Because it's a little different than what I, as a normal Army soldier, would receive, correct?
It is. The communication earplug is a device that fits into the aviator's ear with radio communications built into it, and then it connects via cable to their helmet. And the ending on that, we call it a CEP, the ending on it can either be a foam or a silicone custom molded piece.
No, that's great. Now, it's my understanding hearing loss can occur without somebody noticing it.
That is true. Our brain is very adaptable, and so it starts to perceive sound, even in the presence of hearing loss, as normal to your brain. So once you start feeling like everyone around you is mumbling or muttering, that's usually one of the first signs that the hearing has depreciated.
Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the other early signs or warnings of hearing loss?
Some other things that can happen will be what we call ringing in the ears or tinnitus. And that is essentially the brain is no longer receiving the same amount of input, so it's trying to fill the gap. And for most people, it tends to pick something out that you've heard a lot in the past. So it'll sound like a high-pitched tone, generally speaking, and it can increase over time in how often it happens and how long it lasts until one day it turns on and unfortunately it doesn't turn back off again.
Perfect. We've talked a lot about folks inside the aircraft and pilots so far. What about maintenance personnel? Are they at equal or greater risk for hearing loss?
I would say that they're at least equal risk of hearing loss because the sound will, you could say, dissipate over distance. However, oftentimes maintenance individuals need to talk and communicate with each other. And so if they don't have devices that will pass through low levels of sound, like the person talking next to them, and they lift the hearing protection off of their ears or take it out while they're still in the presence of that noise, research has shown that putting hearing protection back on while you're in a noisy situation is never as effective as the first time it was put in. So they're introducing extra risk when they need to communicate if their device does not have that capability.
Thank you for that. And I think it's absolutely important, I think, especially for our young soldiers just entering that think they're still invincible, that they do wear the hearing protection that the Army provides, because it is about prevention.
Absolutely. And when they use the hearing protection correctly and they remember that they need to turn things down or move further away from the noise source, that's another way to help protect themselves as well.
No, perfect. Thank you. I think I'm going to ask you the question that I think is probably on everyone's mind, and as they listen to us so far, but I think is most important to those on flight status. Can hearing loss affect flight status?
If an individual has their hearing impacted either through previous noise exposure without proper hearing protection or have a medical cause for their hearing loss, it can affect their flight status, but there is a waiver process. So most individuals that have hearing loss continue to fly under a waiver condition. So we do additional testing to look at their overall hearing functionality besides just going off of a number.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. So I think one of the most important things, I'm assuming, is for folks, if they are starting to notice any degradation in hearing, is that they get in and make an appointment with you guys' team.
That is true. It's very easy to make corrections when there's an indicator that hearing loss is occurring. Unfortunately, after it's been acquired, we can't correct hearing loss with the medication or anything like that.
Can you talk about maybe 3 things what soldiers can do today to protect their hearing?
I would say that it's important to remember what we call a time intensity trade-off. Now, that sounds like a big term there, but basically what it means is that the louder something is, the less amount of time you can be around it with and not achieve or acquire some hearing loss. For example, if you're going to the gym and you're exercising between 60 minutes to 2 hours, and you like to use your music to get you through a workout, then you need to turn down your headphones or your AirPods or whatever kind of device you're listening through, because while you're exercising, your blood flow gets a little bit rerouted from the ears to your lungs and your muscles that you're working out, and you're asking them to work harder. So the general rule of thumb to protect hearing while exercising is not louder than 60% of the volume and not for longer than 60 minutes at a time. Most individuals don't realize that the sound that they're exposed to over the entire course of the day adds up. So it might not necessarily be your work exposure because you've got your protective devices at work, but you got to think about your off-duty time as well.
Yes, my watch often goes to loud noises when my dog starts barking relentlessly. We're going to do a little myth or fact. If your ears aren't ringing, your hearing wasn't damaged.
That's false.
You only need hearing protection around running aircraft.
That would be false.
Noise-canceling headphones are the same as hearing protection.
Unfortunately, that is also false.
And you can tough out loud environments without long-term effects.
And that is very much false.
Perfect. I want to ask you, as we wrap up today, I just want to ask you a few scenario-based questions for our listeners. I walk across the flight line for 2 minutes without ear protection. Is that enough to matter?
Again, you got to think about the entire course of the day and how it all adds up. So yes, it does matter.
I fly only occasionally. Should I still worry about hearing loss?
Anytime you are around noise that is over that 85 decibel limit, then yes, you need to worry about using the proper hearing protection so you don't acquire hearing loss.
I've noticed ringing after flying, but it goes away. Should I be concerned?
That is actually a good indicator that noise is getting through. You have to remember that sound is just like water. It will get through any crack. So if the hearing protection is not giving you a seal of your ear canals, then some of that sound is leaking through. And the brain is trying to tell you that with that ringing.
No, perfect. I know that you've been seeing aviators for about 17 years. What's the most common thing aviators tell you after they realize they've lost hearing?
They wish that they would have been better at changing out their CEPs regularly.
And then what's something you wish every new aviator understood before their first day on the flight line?
It would be important to realize that hearing loss is not inevitable. Noise-induced hearing loss is painless, it's progressive, but the main thing is that it's preventable.
Speaking of prevention, have you seen soldiers prevent permanent hearing loss simply by changing a few habits?
Absolutely. So anything that in that term generally goes back to what they do recreationally, and if they make some small modifications, just like turn that volume down a little bit when we're exercising or in the car, then that can help to retain good hearing through their whole entire life, not just their career.
Perfect. As we wrap up today, if you could leave our listeners with only one thing you want them to remember, what would it be?
I will have to reiterate that hearing loss from a military service is not inevitable. And just like any other prevention method, a little bit goes a long ways. So moving further away from the noise source, turning it down, or using the correct hearing protection in the correct way is how they will be able to achieve that. There is a question that's often asked, what is the best type of hearing protector? And the answer is the one that you wear and the one you wear correctly.
No, excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today, Colonel Young.
And thank you for having me.
So, and to our listeners, just remember, you only get one set of ears. Unlike many injuries, hearing loss often happens slowly and silently, until one day you realize the sounds you once took for granted are gone. Whether you're a pilot, crew chief, maintainer, or simply working around Army aircraft, protecting your hearing today helps ensure you'll still hear tomorrow's mission and the voices waiting for you at home. Thanks for joining us for another episode of our Aviation mini-series. Fly safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.
And that wraps up another episode of our Aviation Medicine mini-series on Lyster Health Talks. Stay healthy, Fort Rocker.